Hey guys, tonight we descend together into darkness, so complete it swallows light itself. Your footsteps echo against stone walls carved by hands that turned away from the sun. The air grows thick and heavy as we move deeper underground, following passages that twist like veins through the earth's flesh. You're about to step into a world where pyramids don't reach toward heaven, but burrow into hell, where an entire civilization chose shadow over sky and built their monuments in the belly of the earth. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see who's joining us from around the world. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You crouch at the entrance to what looks like nothing more than a crack in the limestone cliff. The opening is narrow, barely wide enough for your shoulders, and darkness seeps from it like blood from a wound. But this is no natural cave. The edges are too clean, too precise. Someone carved this doorway with purpose, with tools that bit deep into living rock. You squeeze through, and immediately the temperature drops. The sun's warmth vanishes as though it never existed. The passage slopes downward at an angle that makes your feet slide on smooth stone. Your fingers trail along walls that feel almost glassy, polished by countless hands that came before you. The ceiling presses low overhead, forcing you to duck as you descend deeper into the earth. Behind you, the last trace of daylight shrinks to a pinprick, then disappears entirely. This is Saqqara, Egypt, but not the Saqqara tourists know. This is the hidden city beneath the stepped pyramid of Djoser, where the ancient Egyptians built something that defies everything we thought we knew about their civilization. For decades, archaeologists believed the Egyptians were obsessed with reaching toward the heavens, building monuments that pierced the sky like stone prayers. But beneath the sands, another truth waited in darkness. You emerge into the first chamber, and your breath catches in your throat. The space opens like a cathedral carved from solid bedrock. Pillars rise from floor to ceiling, each one shaped with the precision of a master sculptor. The walls curve in impossible arcs, creating a sense of movement frozen in stone. But this isn't decoration. This is architecture that serves a purpose you can't yet understand. The chamber stretches farther than your eyes can penetrate. Shadows pool in corners where your imagination places watchers, guardians left behind by builders who vanished into history. The silence is absolute. Not the quiet of an empty room, but the profound hush of a tomb sealed for millennia. Your footsteps sound like gunshots in the stillness. Archaeological evidence tells us these underground complexes weren't accidental. They weren't storage rooms or basements forgotten by time. They were planned, designed, and executed with the same precision that built the Great Pyramids above ground. But while the surface monuments declared the pharaoh's power to the living world, these buried chambers served a different master: death itself. You move deeper into the labyrinth and discover passages branching off in every direction. Some climb upward at steep angles, others plunge down into darkness so complete it seems solid. The walls are covered in hieroglyphs, but these aren't the familiar texts found in temples and tombs. These symbols twist and writhe like living things, their meanings lost to scholars who've spent lifetimes trying to decode them. One curious detail emerges from the shadows. The passages don't follow straight lines. They curve and spiral like the chambers of a massive shell. Walking through them feels like moving through the inner ear of some stone giant, following paths that seem to lead nowhere and everywhere at once. Your sense of direction dissolves. North and south become meaningless concepts in a world where only up and down matter. The builders of these underground pyramids weren't content with simple burial chambers. They created entire cities beneath the earth, room after room carved from solid limestone, each one serving a purpose that remains mysterious. Some chambers held treasures that grave robbers missed for thousands of years. Others contained mummies arranged in patterns that suggest ritual significance. Still others remain empty, their purpose locked in silence. You pause in what might have been a workshop. Stone blocks lie half-carved, their surfaces showing tool marks left by craftsmen who abandoned their work in the middle of a chisel stroke. Copper tools rest where they were dropped, green with age, but still sharp enough to bite flesh. The scene suggests sudden departure, as though the workers fled from something that came in the night. But fled from what? The historical record offers no answers. The underground complex at Saqqara was sealed deliberately, its entrances hidden beneath sand and rubble. Later, pharaohs built over it as though trying to forget it existed. The knowledge of its construction vanished from Egyptian records, erased as thoroughly as names chiseled from temple walls. Modern excavations began in the 1960s, but progress remained slow and dangerous. The underground chambers stretch for miles in every direction, their true extent still unknown. Cave-ins have claimed sections of passages, sealing off chambers that may never be recovered. The Egyptian government restricts access, allowing only the most experienced archaeologists into the deepest levels. You follow a passage that slopes sharply downward and find yourself facing something that shouldn't exist. A pyramid, perfect in its proportions, carved entirely from the living rock of the cliff face. But this pyramid points downward, its apex buried deep in the earth like a stone dagger thrust into the planet's heart. The precision is breathtaking, each angle calculated, each surface polished, smooth as glass. The inverted pyramid challenges everything we thought we knew about Egyptian architecture. While the great pyramids of Giza reach toward the sun, god Ra, this monument plunges toward the underworld domain of Osiris. It's as though the builders were creating a mirror image of their surface constructions, a shadow kingdom where normal rules don't apply. Hieroglyphs cover every inch of the pyramid surface, but these texts speak of journeys into darkness rather than ascension to light. They describe the pharaoh's soul traveling not to the heavens, but into the depths of the earth, where it would undergo trials that prepared it for rebirth. The imagery is disturbing. Dismemberment, dissolution, transformation through destruction. You circle the inverted pyramid and discover that it's not solid. Passages honeycomb its interior, creating a three-dimensional maze that defies mapping. Some passages lead to chambers filled with canopic jars containing organs of the dead. Others open onto pits that plunge beyond the reach of any light. the engineering required to carve such complexity from solid rock boggles the mind. The acoustic properties of the underground complex are unsettling. Whispers carry for hundreds of yards through the stone corridors. Footsteps echo with strange distortions that make it impossible to judge distance or direction. In some chambers, your voice returns to you changed, deeper, as though the stone itself is speaking. The builders clearly understood how sound behaves in enclosed spaces and used that knowledge to create psychological effects that still work today. Water seeps through hairline cracks in the limestone, collecting in pools that reflect the beam of your flashlight like black mirrors. The water is mineral rich, leaving crystalline deposits that glitter in the darkness. Some pools are shallow, barely covering the stone floor. Others disappear into depths that swallow thrown rocks without a sound. The constant dripping creates a rhythm like a stone heartbeat echoing through empty veins. You discover chambers that serve no obvious purpose. Perfect spheres carved from solid rock, their surfaces polished smooth as eggs. Rectangular rooms with ceilings that spiral upward in mathematical spirals. Corridors that narrow gradually until they become too small for human passage, then widen again into cathedral-sized spaces. The builders were experimenting with form and function in ways that suggest purpose is beyond simple burial. The preservation is remarkable. In the dry air of the underground chambers, organic materials survive that would have crumbled to dust on the surface. Wooden furniture sits where it was placed thousands of years ago, its joints still tight, its surfaces unmarked by time. Papyrus scrolls remain readable, their texts offering glimpses into rituals and beliefs that the surface world forgot. But it's the silence that affects you most deeply. This isn't the comfortable quiet of a library or the peaceful hush of a forest. This is the silence of abandonment, of secrets buried so deep they've become part of the stone itself. Every footstep feels like trespass. Every breath seems too loud in air that hasn't stirred for millennia. The underground pyramid complex at Saqqara isn't unique. Ground-penetrating radar has revealed similar structures beneath other Egyptian archaeological sites. Dashur shows anomalies that suggest inverted pyramids beneath the bent pyramid. Giza's plateau hides chambers that may dwarf the underground complex at Saqqara. The civilization that built these monuments possessed knowledge and capabilities that we're only beginning to understand. You pause at the entrance to a passage that plunges deeper than any you've seen before. The walls are covered in warnings written in hieroglyphs so ancient their style predates the pharaohs by centuries. The messages speak of guardians that never sleep, of trials that destroy the unworthy, of secrets that must never reach the surface world. Yet something calls you forward into that darkness, a curiosity that overrides caution. The builders of these underground pyramids weren't content to simply hide their monuments from view. They created an entire shadow civilization, complete with its own architecture, its own art, its own purposes that remain as mysterious today as they were when the last stone was set in place. This wasn't just about burial or ritual. This was about something deeper, something that required absolute secrecy and perfect preservation. As you stand on the threshold of even greater depth, you realize that everything you thought you knew about ancient Egypt was built on surface observations. The real story lies buried beneath your feet, waiting in chambers that haven't felt human breath for thousands of years. The civilization that built underground pyramids had reasons for their secrecy, reasons that they took with them into darkness so complete it swallows hope itself. Complete it swallows hope itself. The passage ahead narrows until you're forced to crawl on hands and knees through a tunnel carved with surgical precision. The stone beneath your palms is worn smooth by the passage of countless bodies, each one following the same dark pilgrimage into the earth's secret heart. Your shoulders brush the walls as you move forward, and you can't shake the feeling that the tunnel is contracting around you like a throat preparing to swallow. When you finally emerge, you find yourself in a chamber that defies architectural logic. The ceiling soars upward into darkness that your light cannot penetrate, yet the floor is perfectly level, carved from a single piece of bedrock. Massive stone blocks, each one weighing several tons, are fitted together without mortar and joints so tight you couldn't slide a knife blade between them. The precision rivals anything found in the surface pyramids, but here, hidden from the sun's judgment, the builders allowed themselves experiments that would have scandalized the priests above. The chamber's walls curve inward as they rise, creating an optical illusion that makes the space feel both vast and claustrophobic. Carved niches punctuate the walls at regular intervals, each one empty now, but clearly designed to hold something precious. The shadows within these alcoves seem darker than the surrounding gloom, as though they're swallowing what little light your torch provides. You discover inscriptions that record the names of workers, common men whose existence was never acknowledged in the official histories. Kenti, the stone carver, Seneb, the bearer of burdens, Amenhotep, who sees in darkness. These weren't slaves laboring under the whip, but skilled craftsmen who signed their work with pride. Yet their signatures are hidden here in depths where no one was meant to see them, suggesting these men understood they were creating something that would be sealed away from human memory. The deeper chambers reveal a sophisticated understanding of engineering that challenges modern assumptions about ancient capabilities. Ventilation shafts, too narrow for human passage, snake through the limestone to bring fresh air from the surface. The airflow is so subtle, you barely notice it until you hold up a candle and watch the flame bend toward invisible currents. The builders solved problems of air circulation that wouldn't be fully understood again until the industrial age. Water management systems throughout the complex demonstrate similar sophistication. Channels carved into the floor direct groundwater seepage toward collection points where it pools in basins lined with a waterproof plaster, whose composition remains a mystery. The water flows in calculated patterns, never flooding the chambers, but always providing a source of the pure liquid needed for ritual purification. Even in death's domain, the builders maintained their obsession with cleanliness and order. You follow a passage that spirals downward In a perfect mathematical curve, its walls decorated with star charts that map constellations invisible from the surface. These aren't the familiar patterns recorded in temple ceilings, but deeper stellar arrangements that can only be observed from underground chambers at specific times of year. The implications are staggering. The builders possessed astronomical knowledge that required generations of observation conducted in absolute secrecy. The lowest levels revealed chambers that served no purpose the surface world would recognize. Perfectly circular rooms with domed ceilings that amplify sound in ways that transform whispers into rolling thunder. Rectangular spaces with floors that slope toward central drains, their purpose unclear, but their construction flawless. Triangular chambers where the walls meet at angles that create acoustic dead zones, where sound simply vanishes. One chamber stops you in your tracks with its impossible contents. Stone sarcophagi line the walls, but these aren't designed for human remains. They're too small, their proportions wrong for any known burial practice. The lids are carved with symbols that predate hieroglyphic writing, geometric patterns that seem to shift and writhe when observed by flickering torchlight. Whatever these containers held, it wasn't meant for human eyes. The preservation extends beyond organic materials to include evidence of the builders' daily lives. Tool marks in the stone show the rhythm of ancient chisels. Scorch marks on chamber walls reveal where torches burned while craftsmen worked in shifts around the clock. Worn spots on floors mark where supervisors stood to direct the endless labor. You can almost hear the echoes of voices calling instructions through corridors that swallowed their words whole. Graffiti scratched into less visible surfaces offers glimpses into the workers' minds. Prayers to gods whose names vanish from later records. Complaints about working conditions written in crude hieratic script. Love letters carved by homesick men who knew they might never see sunlight again. These personal touches humanize a project that operated on an inhuman scale, reminding you that real people sacrificed their lives to build this shadow kingdom. The underground complex extends far beyond what early excavations suggested. Ground-penetrating radar reveals chambers stacked in multiple levels, creating a three-dimensional city that burrows hundreds of feet into the bedrock. Some passages connect to natural cave systems that stretch for miles beneath the desert, suggesting the builders incorporated existing underground features into their grand design. Recent discoveries hint at connections between underground complexes at different sites. Sealed passages at Saqqara align perfectly with similar features at Dashur, suggesting a network of tunnels that once linked the Shadow Kingdoms beneath multiple pyramid complexes. The scope of such a project would have required resources and coordination that dwarf the surface monuments. Yet no record of this underground empire survives in any known Egyptian text. You pause before a sealed doorway whose blocking stones bear the cartouches of pharaohs who ruled centuries apart. The seals were renewed repeatedly, suggesting whatever lies beyond remained important long after the original builders disappeared. Modern archaeologists debate whether to risk opening such barriers, knowing that some secrets might be more dangerous than valuable. The temperature drops noticeably as you descend toward the complex's deepest levels. Your breath fogs in air that carries scents of mineral deposits and something else, something organic that shouldn't exist after thousands of years. The darkness here feels dense, almost tangible, as though the absence of light has acquired weight and substance. Strange acoustic phenomena become more pronounced in the depths. Sounds that have no visible source echo through the corridors. Footsteps that mirror your own, but come from passages you've already left behind. Voices speaking in languages that predate any known tongue. The builders may have created more than just architecture in these depths. They may have carved spaces where reality operates by different rules. The hieroglyphs in the deepest chambers describe rituals that have no parallel in surface Egyptian religion. Ceremonies involving the transformation of matter itself. The manipulation of forces that later ages would call magic, but which these texts treat as natural phenomena, subject to proper technique. The priests who conducted these rites weren't worshiping gods, but working with principles of existence that required absolute isolation from the corrupting influence of sunlight. You reach a chamber where the walls are lined with crystal formations that grow directly from the limestone, their surfaces polished to mirror brightness. The crystals reflect your light in patterns that seem almost deliberate, creating geometric displays of refracted illumination that dance across the ceiling. Whether natural or artificial, these formations transform the chamber into a hall of mirrors where every surface throws back distorted images of your passage. The deepest passages reveal architectural features that challenge basic assumptions about ancient construction capabilities. Stress-bearing arches that distribute the weight of millions of tons of overlying rock. Expansion joints that accommodate thermal changes in the bedrock. Structural reinforcements that have prevented collapse for millennia, despite earthquakes that leveled surface buildings. The builders possessed engineering knowledge that wouldn't be rediscovered until modern times. As you stand in chambers that haven't seen human presence for thousands of years, you realize the underground pyramid complex represents more than just an alternative approach to monumental architecture. This was a complete civilization operating in parallel to the surface kingdom, pursuing goals and serving purposes that remain as mysterious today as when the last torch was extinguished and the final entrance sealed. The builders of these shadow pyramids possessed secrets that they chose to bury rather than risk exposing to a world they deemed unworthy of such knowledge. Worthy of such knowledge. The crystals embedded in these deepest walls pulse with a faint luminescence that has nothing to do with your torch. The light emanates from within the stone itself, as though the builders infused the very rock with properties that modern science cannot explain. When you extinguish your flame, the chamber doesn't plunge into absolute darkness. Instead, a subtle glow persists, just bright enough to outline the geometric patterns carved into every surface. You discover chambers where the floor consists entirely of polished obsidian, black volcanic glass that reflects your image with disturbing clarity. The obsidian wasn't quarried locally. It came from sources hundreds of miles away, transported through desert and river at enormous cost for reasons that remain opaque. Walking across these mirror floors feels like stepping through liquid shadow, your reflection rippling beneath your feet like dark water. The builders incorporated materials that shouldn't exist in Egyptian architecture. Sections of wall contain metals that resist identification, alloys that combine familiar elements in proportions that create substances harder than bronze, yet more flexible than gold. These metallic inlays follow patterns that seem random until you realize they form a three-dimensional map of the complex itself, a guide readable only by those who understand the builder's symbolic language. Ventilation becomes increasingly sophisticated as you descend. The deepest chambers maintain perfect air quality through systems that operate without any visible mechanism. Fresh oxygen flows from passages too small to explore, while stale air vanishes through openings that lead nowhere your light can follow. The builders achieved atmospheric control that requires no maintenance, no human intervention, no energy source that modern engineering can detect. You enter a chamber where every surface curves in impossible geometries that hurt your eyes to follow. The walls bend inward and outward simultaneously, creating optical illusions that make the space feel both infinite and claustrophobic. Walking through this room requires constant adjustment of balance as your inner ear struggles to process conflicting spatial information. The builders weren't just carving stone, they were manipulating perception itself. Water features throughout the deepest levels demonstrate mastery over hydraulic principles that wouldn't be understood again for millennia. Fountains flow upward without pumps, their streams arcing through air in perfect parabolas before returning to hidden reservoirs. The water maintains constant temperature regardless of seasonal changes above ground, suggesting connections to geothermal sources that modern surveys cannot locate. Hieroglyphic texts in these depths describe construction techniques that read more like alchemy than architecture. References to stones that cut themselves, metals that flowed like water before hardening into shapes stronger than diamond, workers who labored in shifts measured not by hours, but by phases of celestial bodies invisible from the surface. The vocabulary itself suggests technologies that transcended simple tool use. You discover workshops where evidence of impossible craftsmanship still lies scattered across stone benches. Granite blocks carved with details so fine they require magnification to appreciate fully. Jewelry fashioned from materials that don't appear in any geological survey of the region. Sculptures that seem to move when observed peripherally, their poses shifting subtly when you're not looking directly at them. The deepest passages reveal chambers designed for purposes that have no analog in surface Egyptian culture. Perfectly spherical rooms where voices echo with mathematical precision. Their acoustic properties calculated to produce specific harmonic frequencies. Triangular spaces where the angles don't add up to what geometry demands, yet somehow maintain structural integrity that has lasted for millennia. One chamber contains what appears to be a library, but the books are carved from stone tablets thin as papyrus, yet hard as diamond. The texts describe procedures for working with forces that later civilizations would classify as supernatural, but which these records treat as reproducible techniques requiring only proper training and absolute precision. The knowledge recorded here suggests capabilities that challenge basic assumptions about what ancient peoples could achieve. Temperature control in the deepest chambers operates through principles that remain mysterious. Some rooms maintain tropical warmth, while others preserve Arctic cold. Their climate controlled through mechanisms built into the stone itself. The transitions between these zones are abrupt, creating microclimates that exist without any visible heating or cooling apparatus. You find evidence of habitation in chambers so deep that reaching them required journeys measured in hours rather than minutes. Living quarters carved with domestic details that suggest permanent residence rather than occasional visitors. Kitchens equipped for food preparation, though the cooking methods implied by the surviving equipment don't match any known culinary tradition. Bedrooms sized for human occupants, yet designed with proportions that feel subtly wrong for earthly inhabitants. The hieroglyphs in residential areas describe daily routines that have no parallel in surface Egyptian life. Work schedules governed by astronomical events that occur only in underground observatories. Meals prepared from ingredients that don't appear in any known Egyptian agricultural record. Social hierarchies based on mastery of skills that surface civilization never acknowledged. Preservation in the deepest chambers extends beyond organic materials to include evidence of technologies that shouldn't have existed in ancient times. Fragments of glass that bend light in ways that suggest optical principles not rediscovered until the Renaissance. Metal components that show evidence of precision manufacturing techniques that require industrial capabilities. Tool marks that imply cutting implements harder and sharper than anything available to Bronze Age craftsmen. The complex's lowest levels reveal architectural features that serve no apparent structural purpose, yet clearly required enormous investment of time and resources. Corridors that spiral through the bedrock following mathematical curves that have no practical benefit. Chambers shaped like geometric solids that exist in theoretical mathematics, but rarely in physical construction. Spaces designed according to principles that prioritize abstract perfection over human utility. Sound behaves strangely in the deepest chambers, following acoustic laws that seem to operate independently of normal physics. Whispers carry across distances that should render them inaudible, while shouts in other areas vanish completely just feet from their source. The builders understood how to manipulate audio transmission in ways that suggest knowledge of wave mechanics not formally recognized until modern times. You discover chambers where the walls themselves seem alive, their surfaces shifting subtly in patterns too slow for conscious observation, but persistent enough to register in peripheral vision. Whether this movement results from geological processes, atmospheric pressure, or something else entirely remains unclear. The effect is profoundly unsettling, creating the impression that the architecture itself possesses awareness. The deepest passages terminate in chambers that clearly represent the complex's ultimate purpose, though that purpose remains as enigmatic as everything else about this underground civilization. Circular rooms with domed ceilings that focus energy in ways that create tangible effects. Standing in the center of these spaces produces sensations of weightlessness disorientation, temporal displacement. The builders created more than architecture. They carved spaces that alter consciousness itself. As you stand in chambers that represent the absolute depths of human excavation beneath the surface world, you realize that everything discovered so far may represent only the beginning of what lies buried beneath Egypt's sands. The civilization that built these underground pyramids possessed capabilities that transcend our understanding of what ancient peoples could achieve. Their secrets remain locked in darkness that has swallowed millennia of human curiosity, waiting for explorers bold enough to venture beyond the reach of surface light into realms where normal rules cease to apply. The final chamber stretches before you like a cathedral carved from the earth's bones. But this isn't stone worked by human hands. The walls pulse with veins of unknown minerals that thread through the rock like frozen lightning. Your footsteps echo in patterns that seem to respond to your presence, as though the chamber itself is listening, learning, adapting to the rhythm of your heartbeat. You discover that the floor isn't level as it appeared from the entrance. It slopes downward in a gentle spiral that draws your eyes toward the center, where something waits in shadow. As you approach, your light reveals a structure that defies every principle of architecture you thought you understood. A pyramid, yes, but one that exists in dimensions your mind struggles to process. Its edges seem to bend inward and outward simultaneously, creating angles that shouldn't be possible in three-dimensional space. The pyramid's surface isn't carved with hieroglyphs, but with symbols that seem to shift when you're not looking directly at them, mathematical equations that predate known numbering systems, star charts that map constellations which don't exist in any earthly sky, geometric patterns that follow rules of symmetry unknown to surface mathematics. The builders weren't just recording information, they were encoding knowledge that required new forms of symbolic representation. Around the base of the impossible pyramid, you find evidence of the final residence of this underground realm. Not mummies wrapped in linen, but bodies preserved through processes that left them looking as though they had died yesterday rather than millennia ago. Their faces show expressions of profound peace, as though death had come not as an enemy, but as a welcomed friend. Yet their positioning suggests they didn't die naturally. They arranged themselves in patterns around the pyramid's base, creating human mandalas whose meaning remains locked in their eternal silence. The preservation extends to their possessions, and what you discover challenges every assumption about ancient Egyptian material culture. Tools made from substances that don't appear on any periodic table, jewelry that incorporates gems unknown to mineralogy, clothing woven from fibers that feel like silk yet shine like metal. These people possessed resources and technologies that have no parallel in the surface world's archaeological record. Their written records carved into tablets of that same impossible stone describe the final days of the underground civilization with disturbing clarity. They speak of a great work nearing completion, of barriers growing thin between worlds, of knowledge that demanded terrible prices from those who sought to wield it. The texts suggest that whatever project these people pursued in the depths required not just their lives but their very existence as payment for secrets that transcended mortal understanding. You notice that the air itself behaves differently in this final chamber. It shimmers with qualities that have nothing to do with temperature or humidity. Breathing feels effortless, as though the atmosphere has been purified of everything except what human lungs require. Yet there's something else mixed with the oxygen, something that makes your thoughts sharper, while simultaneously filling you with unease about the clarity of your perceptions. The pyramid at the chamber's heart hums with energy that you feel rather than hear. The vibration penetrates your bones, synchronizes with your pulse, seems to rewrite the rhythm of your nervous system. Standing too close produces sensations of displacement, as though you're falling upward while remaining perfectly still. The builders created more than a monument. They crafted a machine whose purpose operates beyond the boundaries of conventional physics. Inscriptions around the chamber's perimeter describe the pyramid's function in language that reads like science fiction written by ancient minds. References to doorways between realms, to consciousness transferred across impossible distances, to the preservation of souls in crystalline matrices that exist outside normal space and time. Whether metaphor or literal description, these texts suggest ambitions that dwarf any earthly construction project. The chamber's acoustics amplify every sound into something profound and unsettling. Your heartbeat becomes thunder rolling through stone corridors. Your breathing transforms into wind, howling across landscapes that exist only in imagination. Even the rustle of your clothing echoes with harmonics that seem to carry meaning beyond mere noise. The builders designed this space to overwhelm human senses with information too complex for conscious processing. You discover that the strange luminescence pervading the chamber originates from the pyramid itself. The structure glows with internal light that cycles through spectrums visible and invisible to human perception. Sometimes the glow is warm and welcoming. Other times it pulses with colors that have no names in any earthly language. The light seems responsive to your presence, growing brighter when you approach, dimming when you retreat. The final inscriptions, carved into the chamber's highest walls, where only the most determined explorers would find them, record the ultimate fate of the underground civilization. They describe a transformation rather than an ending, a translation of consciousness into forms that could survive the collapse of physical reality. The builders didn't die in this chamber. They transcended it, leaving behind only the shells of bodies no longer needed for existence in realms beyond material constraints. Modern instruments behave erratically in the pyramid's presence. Electromagnetic fields fluctuate in patterns that follow no known physical laws. Radiation detectors register emissions that shouldn't exist. Temperature sensors report readings that vary by hundreds of degrees within the span of inches. The structure interacts with reality according to principles that science has yet to discover or acknowledge. The chamber's design incorporates mathematical relationships that exist in theoretical realms far beyond practical architecture. The pyramid's proportions encode formulas that describe the behavior of matter and energy at scales ranging from subatomic particles to galactic superclusters. The builders possessed knowledge of universal constants that wouldn't be calculated again until the space age. Yet they applied this understanding to construction projects that preceded written history. You find evidence that the chamber served as more than just a tomb or monument. Residual traces of experiments that pushed the boundaries of what matter could be forced to become. Crystalline formations that grow in patterns impossible under normal geological conditions. Metallic deposits that show evidence of transmutation processes that shouldn't occur naturally. The builders used this space as a laboratory for manipulating the fundamental forces of reality. The pyramid's internal structure becomes visible through openings that appear and disappear according to no pattern you can discern. Glimpses reveal chambers within chambers, spaces that exist in configurations that shouldn't fit within the structure's external dimensions. The interior follows non-Euclidean geometry that creates more space inside than outside, violating basic principles of spatial mathematics while somehow maintaining structural integrity. Standing in this final chamber, surrounded by evidence of capabilities that transcend human understanding, you realize that the underground pyramid complex represents more than just an alternative approach to monumental architecture. This was a civilization that discovered principles of existence operating beyond the boundaries of ordinary reality. They built these buried monuments not to hide from the surface world, but to access realms that could only be reached from the deepest foundations of earthly existence. The knowledge they pursued required absolute isolation from the contaminating influence of normal human consciousness. Their experiments demanded spaces carved from living rock and sealed away from any connection to the world of sunlight and surface concerns. What they achieved in these depths remains hidden, not because they failed, but because they succeeded too completely for their discoveries to survive contact with ordinary reality. The final chamber pulses with energies that have waited millennia for someone to witness their operation. The pyramid continues its work, processing information according to programs encoded in its crystalline structure, pursuing purposes that its builders set in motion before translating their consciousness into forms that could survive the collapse of their physical civilization. Their greatest achievement wasn't the monuments they built, but the transformation they underwent in building them. As you stand before this impossible pyramid in chambers deeper than human exploration has ever reached, you understand that everything discovered in the underground complex has been leading to this moment of recognition. The civilization that built these shadow monuments succeeded in their ultimate goal. They didn't just hide their secrets from the surface world. They hid themselves, translating their entire existence into forms that operate beyond the reach of ordinary perceptions, while their monuments continue functioning according to principles that make reality itself malleable to properly focused will. The pyramid's influence extends beyond the chamber's boundaries, reaching into the limestone foundations of Egypt itself. Seismic monitoring equipment placed throughout the Saqqara complex registers vibrations that originate from this deepest point and spread outward in patterns that follow the ancient Nile's underground course. The structure isn't just a monument, it's a transmitter broadcasting signals through the Earth's crust according to frequencies that predate any known communication system. You notice that your perception of time becomes unreliable in the pyramid's presence. Minutes stretch into hours, while hours compress into heartbeats. Your watch stops functioning entirely, its hands frozen at the moment you entered the chamber. Yet somehow, you remain aware of duration passing, measured not by mechanical devices, but by internal rhythms that synchronize with the pyramid's pulsing energy. The builders discovered how to manipulate temporal flow itself. The chamber's walls reveal additional inscriptions that become visible only when viewed from specific angles relative to the pyramid's glow. These hidden texts describe connections between the underground complex and similar structures buried beneath sites across the ancient world. References to sister pyramids beneath the Mesopotamian ziggurats, shadow temples carved into Himalayan bedrock, crystalline chambers hollowed from Australian sacred stones. The Egyptian builders weren't working in isolation. They were part of a global network of underground civilizations. You step back from the impossible pyramid one final time, your mind reeling with the weight of what you've witnessed in these buried depths. The glow fades behind you as you begin the long ascent through passages that now feel less like stone corridors and more like the arteries of some vast sleeping consciousness. Each step carries you away from truths too profound for the surface world to comprehend, yet their echo will follow you forever. The civilization that built these underground pyramids didn't simply vanish into history. They transcended it, leaving behind monuments that continue their work in darkness absolute, patient as the stones themselves, waiting for the day when humanity proves worthy of their secrets.